I don't really post on Reddit much. I'm usually just lurking and reading stories, so forgive me if I don't format this perfectly. Back in 2018 or 2019, when I was about 18 or 19, I lived in Nebraska, in the biggest city there, even though it still felt completely surrounded by endless cornfields and farmland. The city was expanding fast, and wealthy families had started building these massive houses right on the edge where civilization basically faded into open fields. One of my close friends lived in one of those houses. His parents owned a huge property out near the edge of town, and our whole friend group spent a ton of time there. They had ATVs, a hot tub, a giant living room where we'd binge reality TV or watch sports, and his parents were relaxed enough to let us drink there as long as nobody left afterward. It was the perfect hangout spot. The only thing I hated was how isolated it felt at night. I've always been scared of the dark, and out there, once the sun went down, it was pitch black. Almost no streetlights, thick trees everywhere. The nearest neighbour was probably a mile away. Even driving to and from the house late at night gave me this weird, uneasy feeling I could never explain. To get there, you had to take this long, winding two-lane road with dense trees on both sides. On the way, you passed one of the biggest cemeteries in the city. There were barely any cars out there, and almost no lighting except for the occasional street lamp. Honestly, it already felt creepy enough that I used to speed through that stretch just to get past it faster. One night, though, something happened that I still think about constantly. It was around 10 p.m., perfect spring weather. I had my windows down, music playing, and I was driving out to my friend's house like usual. As I came around one of the curves in the road, I suddenly slammed on my brakes. Standing in the middle of the road, maybe 50 yards ahead of me, was what looked like an entire family. And when I say dark out there, I mean completely pitch black. The only thing lighting up the road was my headlights. There were 3, maybe 4 people. A tall, thin woman, an average-sized man, a child around 8 years old with short hair. And the woman was pushing a stroller. What made it worse was how normal they looked. Their clothes weren't ragged or dirty. They looked like regular people, but they had no flashlights, no phones, no light source at all, which meant they had been walking through total darkness before my headlights hit them. They were walking silently down the center of the road in the same direction I was driving, not talking, not reacting, nothing. I turned my music down, trying to hear if they were speaking to each other, laughing, anything. There was absolutely no sound. The hair on my arm stood straight up. I stopped the car and waited for them to move, but they didn't even acknowledge me. They never turned around, never looked back, never stepped out of the road. I remember sitting there thinking, am I dreaming right now? It didn't even feel real. Then, before I could fully process what I was looking at, they all stopped walking at the exact same time, and, very slowly, they turned to face my car. I cannot describe the fear that hit me in that moment. I didn't wait to see their faces. The second they started turning toward me, I threw my car into reverse and floored it backward down the road for what felt like forever, probably 20 full seconds. Then I whipped the car around in a messy U-turn, nearly drove off the road, and sped away as fast as I could. The only thing I clearly remember seeing, the stroller was empty. That's the detail that still sticks with me the most. I have never felt fear like that before or since. I checked my rearview mirror over and over until I finally reached a main road, expecting to see them behind me somehow. But I never saw them again. Not that night, not ever. I tried telling my friend and his family about it afterward, but the way they looked at me made me feel completely insane. Every time I tell this story, people usually react one of three ways. Either they think I'm crazy, they think I'm lying, or they get really quiet and admit they've experienced something strangely similar. I honestly don't care whether people believe me or not. It's still the creepiest thing that has ever happened to me. To this day, I still think about it all the time. Maybe it was just some bizarre family trying to scare people. Maybe it was some kind of setup for a robbery or attack. Or maybe it was something far worse. But for my own sanity, I'll probably spend the rest of my life convincing myself it was the first option. This happened about 11 years ago when I was a senior in high school, and to this day, it is still the single most disturbing thing I have ever experienced. It happened in the middle of December in Iowa. And if you've never experienced an Iowa winter at night, it's hard to explain just how cold and silent it gets. The kind of cold where if you're stranded outside too long, you could genuinely die. Snow covered everything, muffling the world into complete silence. You could hear every creak in the house, every shift of the floorboards, every tiny sound outside. That night, my best friend Colton and I were hanging out in my family's walkout basement. Nothing special, just a boring winter night, playing video games. We were also home alone. My mum had gone straight from work to a bar with some co-workers, and she told me she'd probably be out most of the night. So naturally, being dumb teenagers, we decided it was the perfect opportunity to sneak some wine from the house and live a little. We had literally just opened the first bottle when I suddenly heard the garage door open upstairs, then slam shut. Instantly, panic hit me. "Oh shit," I muttered, scrambling to hide the bottle. Colton looked over at me and said, "Wait, I thought your mum was supposed to be gone all night." "She was," I answered. A second later, I heard heavy footsteps upstairs. Then my mum's voice called out, "Meow Zanbu? Anyone home?" I immediately yelled back upstairs, "Yeah, we're down in the basement." I heard a few more footsteps moving from the garage toward the stairs. Then her voice called down again, "Can you come help me with something? I need you up here." I was still frantically trying to hide the wine bottle while answering, "Yeah, just give me a minute." Then everything went silent. For about 20 seconds, there was absolutely nothing. And then I heard her again, but this time, something was wrong. "Anyone down there with you?" The tone had changed completely. It sounded serious, concerned, and the voice sounded like my mum's, but not fully, like someone trying to imitate her. It was close enough to fool you at first, but there was something missing from it that I couldn't explain. That was the first moment my stomach dropped, because my family never cared if friends were over, ever. Our house was basically open to everyone, so why would she ask that? Trying to ignore the feeling creeping over me, I yelled back, "Just Colton!" I finally found a hiding spot for the wine and started walking upstairs. And as I climbed the steps, I became hyper-aware of how silent the house was. Not normal silence, heavy silence, the kind that presses against your ears. I could physically feel this strange electric sensation crawling through my body, that instinctive feeling that something is deeply wrong. When I reached the top of the stairs, I looked toward the kitchen and the garage entrance. Everything was dark, pitch black, no lights, no moonlight through the windows, nothing. I walked cautiously into the kitchen and called out, "Mum." No answer. "Mum, where are you?" Still nothing. Just darkness. That electric feeling instantly turned into pure adrenaline. My mom was not home. Every survival instinct in my body started screaming at me to get out immediately. I ran back downstairs, grabbing my coat as I went. "What's wrong?" Colton asked. "My mum's not home," I said frantically while searching for my truck keys. He looked completely confused. "What do you mean? You were literally just talking to her." "There's nobody upstairs," I told him. "We need to leave, right now." I started toward the back door that led outside, but then I saw my dog trembling on the couch, and my cat crouched behind it, growling. I stopped cold. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt absolutely certain that if we left them alone in that house, something terrible would happen. "Are we leaving or not?" Colton asked, still trying to process everything. I shook my head. "No, I'm calling my mom." I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. She answered immediately. "Meow Sanbu? What's going on?" "Mum," I said, almost out of breath, "were you just home? I heard you yelling for me upstairs." There was a pause. Then she said, "No, I'm just leaving the bar now. I wasn't feeling well. What do you mean you heard me?" As I explained everything, panic started creeping into her voice too. She told us to stay downstairs and said she was coming home immediately. So Colton and I stayed in the basement with the animals, waiting, and while we sat there, we could feel something upstairs. Not footsteps, not movement, nothing physical. It felt more like pressure moving through the house, like the air itself was shifting from room to room. The only way I can describe it is this. It felt hungry, like a predator circling above us. Every instinct in my body knew that whatever had spoken to me using my mother's voice was not human. Then finally, my mom got home, and the second she walked through the door, the feeling vanished, instantly, like whatever had been inside that house had fled the moment she arrived. To this day, we still have no explanation for what happened. And honestly, this wasn't even the only unexplainable thing my family experienced in that house. It was just the easiest story to tell because someone else witnessed it with me. My mom has passed away now, and I've since moved to Arizona. But whenever I go back to Iowa and see Colton, we still end up talking about that night. And every single time, it still creeps us out. I'll probably never know what was really in that house, but I know one thing for certain. Whatever was calling to me in my mother's voice, it was evil, and it was hungry. This is my first time posting something like this, and I swear every word of it is true. When this happened, I was around 10 or 11 years old. My mother and I lived alone in a small lake house in a rural part of Oklahoma. The house itself always felt isolated. At night, there were no city sounds, no traffic, nothing except insects, wind, and the occasional creaking of the old house settling. It was the kind of place where darkness felt heavier than normal. One night, I woke up suddenly for absolutely no reason. I didn't hear a noise. I didn't have a nightmare. I just snapped awake instantly, like something had pulled me out of sleep. And immediately, I felt uneasy. The only sound in the house was my mother snoring softly in the next room on the couch. I tried rolling over and going back to sleep, but I had to use the bathroom badly enough that I finally forced myself to get up. The bathroom was on the complete opposite side of the house. To get there, I had to leave my room, go around a corner, walk through the kitchen, and then head down a long hallway. I remember feeling nervous the entire walk there for reasons I couldn't explain. Eventually I made it to the bathroom, finished, and flipped the light switch off before stepping back into the dark hallway. That's when I heard it. Click. The bathroom light turned back on behind me. I froze instantly. Slowly I turned around toward the hallway, and then the light started flicking on and off by itself. Click, 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 over and over again. The sound echoed through the hallway while the light flashed in the darkness. Then suddenly, it stopped. The light shut off completely, and standing near the far end of the hallway, I began to make out a shape. White, small, crouched low to the floor. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was looking at. Then it hit me. Nobody else was supposed to be in the house. It was only me and my mom. I stood there, completely frozen, while this thing stayed crouched in the darkness. Then it spoke. In a quiet man's voice, it whispered, "Help me. I'm lost." Even now, years later, I can still hear exactly how it sounded. The voice was human, but wrong, like something pretending to sound human. I wanted to scream for my mother, but fear completely locked up my body. The only thing I could force out was a tiny "no." And the second I said it, the thing charged at me. It sounded like it was running on all fours. I heard hands and feet slamming against the floor as it sprinted down the hallway toward me. That snapped me out of whatever frozen state I was in. I turned and ran. I bolted through the kitchen, around the corner, and straight to my mum, shaking her awake while screaming, "It's coming! It's coming!" I remember her eyes instantly going from half asleep to fully alert. She grabbed my shoulders and asked what was wrong, and then she looked over my shoulder. I watched the expression on her face change instantly, and she screamed. To this day, I have never heard terror like that come out of another human being. It was pure fear, the kind of scream that makes your blood turn cold. She grabbed me and dragged me into my bedroom, slamming the door shut behind us. Then she held me tightly against her chest, with her back pressed against the door, and we listened. Something was moving through the kitchen, fast, running in circles. We could hear hands and feet slapping against the tile floor over and over. The kitchen had a sliding glass door leading outside, and suddenly we heard it slam open violently, then slam shut again. After that, silence. Neither of us moved until morning. Not once. When daylight finally came, my mother sent me to stay with my grandmother in the next town over, and I never stepped foot inside that house again. Years later, my mom finally told me that after the incident, she walked around the property trying to understand what happened. While searching the land, she found a small burial site hidden nearby. 3 old headstones, all belonging to children from the early 1900s. That discovery disturbed me deeply, but the thing that still bothers me the most is this. The voice I heard that night wasn't a child's voice. It was a grown man's voice, and it sounded deeply unnatural. Even now, my mother refuses to tell me what she saw standing behind me before she screamed. Every time I ask, she shuts down completely. The only thing she's ever said is, "I'm afraid if we talk about it too much, it'll come back." And honestly, part of me believes her.